Hey, In2Pickle's week 4 of the podcast. I want to talk to you today about strategies, finding the right strategies for your game. We're going to talk a little bit about left-handed, right-handed strategies with a real focus on strategies for your game. At the end, I'll give you a riff on, why do you play pickleball? What is it that you're looking for in pickleball? And maybe that'll help explain or help you decide what it is that you should do for your game. So let's get into the podcast. Are you repeating the same errors on court over and over again? Wouldn't it be nice if you could, first, recognize what was causing the repeated error, and second, fix it during the game? You can acquire this skill set. You can study videos and watch your friends as they play to develop your ability to see the game. Or you can join the In2Pickle Academy and we will teach you how. If you're interested, go to In2Pickle.com and click on clinics, or you can email Laurie, Laurie, at In2Pickle.com. Become the best player you can be. If you follow In2Pickle, you know that we have a Project 4.0, which is basically our principle or one of our guiding principles is that any player who puts in the work and has enough desire to play at that level can play a Benchmark 4.0 level. And Benchmark 4.0 level is basically a player who knows the fundamental strategies, executes fundamental strategies, plays process-driven pickleball, and at the end of the day, if the player plays tournaments, will be a very competitive team or competitive player in that tournament, and will medal over time, 25% of the time or more. So that's one of the underlying principles of our program at In2Pickle, or our philosophy, I should say, at In2Pickle, how we view the game. Is this Project 4.0. So Project 4.0 was basically, trying to put together the skills, concepts, and strategies that are necessary to be a Benchmark 4.0 player and to bring those to you. So there was a question that was asked by a good friend of us, of In2Pickle, and she asked basically, are there some strategies that I can bring to bear as a left-handed player that will give me an advantage as I play? Obviously, I am a left-handed player, so I'm used to playing from that vantage point. So I thought it was a really good question, to try and find an edge, if you will, as a left-handed player. But what I wanted to reframe it a little bit, and what I wanted to reframe it as is basically, what can you or anybody as a pickleball player do to gain an advantage? There are certainly some things that you may be able to do by virtue of being right-handed or left-handed, but instead of just looking at it that way, I wanted to initially approach it from the vantage point of just generally what can you do to improve your chances of being successful during your game, and then give you maybe some specific tips that are applicable to left-handed or right-handed players. All of us as players have sides of the game, or whether it's forehand, backhand, or shots that we hit that are better than other shots, and shots that we hit that just are not as good as other shots. An easy example would be, let's take a third shot. So most of us have a wing, whether it's forehand or backhand, on which we're better at hitting our third shots. So as an example, knowing that as a player, what I'll do is I'll position myself when I'm serving or when my partner's serving, I'll position myself in a way to expose more of that side of my body to the court, therefore, increasing the chances that I'm going to be able to hit the third shot with that wing. And let's take it one step further in terms of being specific. So let's assume, for instance, I'm left-handed. I'm playing on the right side because we're stacking, and I want to hit third shots with my forehand, right? Which is in the middle. So what I'm going to do in that situation is I will move my body to the right so that there's less of my backhand on the court, or less of my backhand available to my opponents to hit to, and that allows me to then hit more third shots with my forehand. That's just a very specific example of a general principle, which is what you want to do is you want to survey your skill set. So you want to basically look at yourself as a pickleball player and honestly assess what do you do well and what do you not do so well, or what could you do better, and also which sides do you do it better on? Do you attack better with the backhand or attack better with the forehand when you put the ball away? If you attack better with the forehand, for instance, and you get a high floater that's, say, in the middle of your body, what you want to do is you want to take a step over to either left if you're right-handed or to the right if you're left-handed, so that you can make sure you hit that ball with the forehand. And you want to capitalize on your strengths, right? And you want to basically bring your strengths to bear. Now the weaknesses or the sides that, or the side or the shots that you're not as strong on, what I suggest there is when you're playing, so when you're in the middle of play, you want to try and narrow that window as much as possible, so to make it as hard as possible for the opponent to attack that weak area if they're doing that. What you want to do is then, when you have time to drill or practice, that's when you want to work on the weaknesses. So let's say, again, going back to the example earlier, if my backhand third shot's not as good as my forehand third shot, then what I should do is I should take some time, whether it's 5 or 10 minutes before a game, or if I have more time, to drill, then drill it. And what I want to do is I want to spend a lot of time working on my backhand third shot to round out my game, so that when I go out and play, now the backhand third shot is not as weak as it used to be. And that's a personal, for me, that's actually my history is that my backhand third shot was not a very good third shot. My forehand third shot's still a little bit better than my backhand third shot, but the difference in the two is not as great as it used to be. So I'm much more comfortable when I play allowing the backhand to be available as an option to execute a third shot. Another way to think about the strengths or weaknesses is also, what type of player are you? Some players are more control players. Some players are more, moving the ball around. They're never going to miss a shot. They're going to be able to dink, for hours. But maybe they lack an aggressive shot, a drive, or something that they can basically generate pace and kind of bring the point to fruition, or the rally to an end. So if you're a control player, perhaps what you want to do is draw your opponents into your type of game, where you can basically grind them into submission, if you will, and just beat them through that way. But let's say you're an aggressive player, you're a naturally aggressive player, and the other team is trying to lull you into their game, then maybe you want to understand and recognize that and then come out of it. And if you're a Trekkie, there's a story called the Kobayashi Maru. I'm not going to get into it in this podcast. I'll probably do a whole podcast on it because I think it's super fascinating concept, and it's just a good way of approaching things like pickleball. But basically what you want to do is you want to be in control of the tempo and control of the type of game that you're playing, and you want your opponents to play the game that you want to play. You don't want to force yourself to play the game that they want to play. And that's sometimes a battle back and forth, where your opponent's trying to lull you into their game and you're trying to lull them into your game. But don't give up on that, and understand that from a strategic standpoint, again, just like you want to hit the shots that in a match, you want to hit the shots that make the most sense based on your skill set. You also want to play the type of game that makes the most sense based on the type of player you are and what you're most comfortable doing. I'm going to give you some specific left-handed tips in a second, but before I do, remember that the better way of approaching it, or the more holistic way of approaching it, is to look at your game as an entire thing, all aspects of your game, I should say, and then determine what parts of your game are strongest, what parts of your game need work. Use your strengths as much as you can during play, and then work on the areas that you need to work on during drilling and practice. All right, let's get into some specific tips that might help as a left-handed player. One of the obvious things that you can do if you have a left-handed and a right-handed player playing together is, if both their forehands are the strongest shots, and that's an assumption that people make. It's not always the case. A lot of times racquetball players, for instance, who come to pickleball have better backhands, just because that backhand whip shot in racquetball is a really important shot. So it's an assumption that we make that forehands are stronger, but let's assume in this situation that forehands are stronger for both the right-handed and left-handed player. In that situation, then stacking and putting those forehands in the middle makes sense. And players will tell me that stacking can get confusing or whatever, and that's fine. But you certainly should be able to learn how to stack at least on serve. So at a minimum, you should be able to stack while you're serving, put those forehands in the middle, and then wreak havoc on your opponents when you have the opportunity by doing that. Another advantage that you might be able to take advantage of as a left-hander is the angle of the shot that you hit. So I would still attack the middle, or more in the middle, but what will happen is your ball is going to hook in a way that right-handed players may not be used to, because they play with other right-handed players percentage-wise more than left-handed players. So you may have some small advantage by being able to hit the ball with that kind of as you come across it, and the way that the angle of the shot comes in. So that's just a natural advantage you would have as a left-handed player. The main advantage of being left-handed versus two right-handed players, or a left-hander and a right-hander, is the ability to stack and to basically move forehands around and backhands around. It can be advantageous, and it's something that I've been able to use in tournament play in order to improve our chances to win. In the end, the best approach is to look at your game holistically and to honestly assess strengths and weaknesses, and then use your strengths and work on your weaknesses. My riff on why do you play pickleball? Coming up. Did your cousin call you and say, teach me pickleball? You can do that, or you can get him a copy of Play Pickleball, the Beginner's Guide. It's the most complete guide on how to play pickleball. It includes how to hit the ball, the rules of the game, scoring, and even some strategy. You can find it at In2Pickle.com or on Amazon. I was speaking with a fellow instructor the other day, and one of the questions that came up was, kind of like trying to assess whether the instructor was asking me whether the work that was being done made sense given the students and kind of what the feedback was and things like that. And it got me thinking about trying to understand more of what it is that the pickleball player, right, the student in this case, is trying to accomplish by playing pickleball. And I think it's a really important thing to when we play pickleball to take some time to think about why it is that we play pickleball. For some of us, pickleball is a sport that we want to play tournaments in, we want to compete in, we want to go to the U.S. Open and things like that. For that type of player, then, reading books, watching videos, drilling, clinics, lessons, all those types of things, have an objective of basically improving as a player, trying to get as good of a player as you can within your current rating, whatever that is, and then eventually moving up to a higher rating and so on until the end of time, right? So you just keep working to improve and try and incrementally add something new to your game. And that's a perfectly fine objective as a pickleball player. But I think it's important to keep in mind that there are players out there who are just as worthy of pickleball players as the competitive ones who are looking for something different. Sometimes a player might be looking for just kind of a social, active social kind of an outlet, where there's a group of people who are enjoying themselves out there on a court, getting a little bit of exercise and the social aspect. And some other group of players just want exercise. They just want to go out there and have exercise. And, they're not really that concerned about stacking and learning all these kind of, more advanced strategies or concepts. And I don't think there's, frankly, there's anything wrong with that kind of view of the game or that kind of approach to the game if that's what you're looking for. And I think it's important to kind of keep that in mind when we're out there, not just, as instructors. I think it's important, but not just as instructors, but also as players. When we're at a rec center or open play, some of the players there are just want to play. They're not really interested in improving. So like, for instance, what I do personally is if I see somebody who is doing something that I think I can help with, and I think it's appropriate to suggest it to them, I will ask them whether they would like me to share that with them. And if they're not interested, then perfectly fine. There's nothing says that they have to get better if that's not their objective as a pickleball player. So anyway, I think it's valuable just to kind of reflect a little bit on what it is that we're looking for. And sometimes I think it helps also, for us who are competitive and want to, like Jill and I, we play tournaments and, we work on our game, we drill, we want to improve. But I think it's also good to kind of understand and I'm going to use the word holistic again, but the kind of holistic benefits of pickleball when we go out there. It's not just, did I execute third shots at X percentage? Did I move right every time and things like that? A lot of it should be, hopefully, that we're out there with friends, with fellow pickleball players who enjoy the sport like we do. We're hopefully enjoying some nice time outdoors. And at the end of the day, getting some exercise. So, there's a lot of benefits to the game, and I think keeping them keeping them all on our minds can give us some perspective when we're out there, and maybe avoid us, and by us I mean me, from losing our minds when we miss that dink or third shot. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed the podcast. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, please give it a rating on whatever platform you're listening to it on. Guys and gals, stay safe out there, and we'll talk next week. Good luck out there.